State Representative Liz Berry. I serve in the 36th Legislative District in the State House of Representatives in Northwest Seattle. And I was elected in 2020, and I've been laser focused on 3 issues for our state: supporting and uplifting working families, urgently combating climate change, and interrupting gun violence in our communities. And most importantly, though, I am mom to George, who's 6, and Eleanor, who's 3, and which keeps me very busy. But I'm so excited to be here tonight to be with our U.S. Senator Patty Murray. It's an honor to share the stage with her and to answer your questions tonight. I even wore my tennis shoes for my favorite mom in tennis shoes, because you know Patty's always in tennis shoes when you see her, which I love. So I wanted to let the Senator have some opening remarks before we answer our questions. So, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you for joining me tonight. She is an awesome member of our state legislature, and I love working with her because her priorities are my priorities. So I really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody coming out tonight. I'm looking forward to your questions and time to talk. Let me just say that we're here tonight to talk a lot about family issues, and I just want to let you know where I come from on this. I grew up in a family with 7 kids in the family, and you know, budgets were darn tight, but when I was young, my dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and lost his job. He was a World War II veteran, and my mom had to take care of him and raise 7 kids. And I will tell you, I'm here today because my government was at my back. We had food stamps when we needed them. Every one of us got to go to college because there were Pell Grants and student loans that helped us pay for college. My mom had been staying home to raise 7 kids. She had no work skills, but she got work-study help and went to Lake Washington Voc Tech at the time, got some skills, got a job. And again, our country was at our back. My dad got VA benefits. Our country was at our back. So I know that the help that my country came through for me and my family has to be there for families today. And there's so many families struggling who need that kind of help and support. And I know personally, if you give people a little bit of help, they can stand up and they can become a United States Senator. So I am really working hard to make sure we support families today. It's one of the reasons that I almost doubled the Pell Grants last year in the state, in the budget. It's why I fight so hard for children's nutrition programs. It's why I'm fighting so hard to get child care and paid family leave, because I really believe if we support our families with the right policies and investments, that family's better off, that community's better off, and our country's better off. So I'm here tonight to hear from some of you, take your questions, and look forward to a great discussion. But thank you all for showing up. Appreciate it.
Okay, our first question is right on message. What is your plan to fix childcare?
Okay, this is an issue I am so passionate about. I tried really hard to get it in the Inflation Reduction Act, or whatever we call it at the end of the day. And I feel passionately about this. I did long before COVID hit, but obviously when the pandemic hit, a lot of our child care facilities shut down. And we knew that our essential workers had to be at work. We knew that families had to be at work. They didn't have any place to leave their kids. As we start to grow our economy again, we can't expect people to be at work if there is nowhere to leave their kids. You are only as good at your job as how well your kids are doing wherever you've had to leave them. So I developed a plan for our nation to put a focus on childcare. And I looked at all the challenges that we have. We don't have enough facilities. People can't afford the cost of it. And we don't have enough childcare workers. So what my plan did was provide grants to communities to build child care facilities, so there was a place for our kids. So if you have an empty building here, your community can gather together, use federal dollars, and build it into a child care facility. And then we capped the expenses for parents, so you don't pay more than 7% of your income. If you earn less than $200,000, the rest is paid for by subsidies by the federal government. Why is that an important subsidy for us? Because we benefit when people are at work and their kids are safe. So it would cap your out-of-pocket expenses at 7%, which is incredibly important for people to be able to afford it. And third, we knew our child care workforce was really in trouble. I mean, I talked to so many child care workers who said, I get paid more at McDonald's. Well, that's bad for the workforce. It's bad for our kids when you put your kid in childcare and they have a new childcare instructor every other day. They finally get attached to somebody and it's somebody new. That makes it hard on them. It makes it hard on you as a parent. So we have a huge investment in childcare workforce so that they get paid, they get the training they need, and get the support so they stay in the job. I worked really hard to get that. We were 2 votes short in the Senate to get it done this year. But I have not given up. It is my top priority. I'm going to go back. We are going to get this done. I keep working on every single member of Congress because I really believe this is one of the most important barriers that we need to reduce if we want our economy to bounce back and for everybody to do better.
Amen. As a mom with 2 little kids, I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question is from Lucinda. It's about climate change. So obviously it's on everyone's mind. Like this weekend, for example, I had to keep my kids inside because of the wildfire smoke. And that, we usually expect that on rainy days, not beautiful sunny days here in Washington. But Lucinda wants to know, we know that you believe climate change is an existential threat. What's next on the climate change agenda in Washington, D.C.? And in particular, she wants to know what you think about Senator Manchin's proposal on the Mountain Valley Pipeline and other fossil fuel projects, and what you think is up next for us.
Well, I do believe that climate change is an existential threat. And if you don't believe it, come out to my state. I tell every senator right now, and try and breathe the air here.
Right.
And the wildfire smoke is horrible. I know kids have been out of school, people have had trouble. Asthma is a huge problem for folks. We all are feeling it, right? And this is not good for anybody. It's caused by extreme droughts and heat, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can at every level. And I am proud that the United States Senate and House and the President signed it, the first and biggest investment in climate action in the history of our country, so that we can convert our economy to a clean energy economy, help families do what they can do to lower their emissions. One of the great things in this bill is that we're helping provide tax subsidies for people to become more energy efficient in their homes with solar panels and heat pumps, helping people buy used or new electric vehicles, those kinds of things that lowering the cost of that will help all of us progress. I was actually at a low-income housing unit not far from here where they're now putting solar panels in the roof of the low-income housing. Those residents, low-income residents, will be able to lower their energy costs and put their excess solar power back on the grid and get a rebate for it. I mean, this is so exciting, and exactly what we need to be doing to move to a new clean energy economy. And by the way, I want those new clean energy jobs created, developed, manufactured here in the United States, and for us to be exporting our energy rather than importing oil from other companies. So this to me is really important. And you asked me specifically about Joe Manchin's proposal. So when we voted on the climate change bill, Joe Manchin had a deal with Chuck Schumer that he would vote with us to get all of it done, but wanted a vote on another proposal he had, which includes that pipeline. He didn't have the votes for it to get out, so we did not vote on it. I don't think he will have the votes on it, so at this point it's moot.
All right, there you go. What are you doing to expand home and community-based care services, especially around mental health services?
Home and community-based health services. This is near and dear and personal to me as well. I told you my dad got multiple sclerosis. My mom was his caregiver. It was a struggle. And I know how important it is to have someone, when she had to go to work, to have someone there for my dad. He couldn't get out of the wheelchair by himself. And caregivers do just an essential job. They help people work, they help take care of somebody, and their pay is not enough, and we don't have enough trained care workers. Our care economy is really critical to families today and becomes more so. We want people to be able to stay in their homes. And so caregivers are an extremely important part of that. Again, in the Inflation Reduction Act, we tried really hard to get a provision for more support for caregivers. I have not given up because I know the impacts of this. We were not able to get it. We need 2 more votes. This election is important. We are working hard, and hopefully this can be part of our next package. I actually told The leader, Chuck Schumer, I said, okay, I know we're doing climate action and we're lowering prescription drug costs. I'm all in. But okay, next time we have to reduce the barriers for families, and that includes childcare and it includes the caregiving economy.
Amen. Stephen first wants to thank you for your service. And next, he wants to say, so this is a little bit of a personal question, but there's some concerns for your safety and members of your staff and colleagues, and want to know what are plans for increased protections for legislators and all staff in Washington, D.C.
Well, you actually know this, Liz, better than anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Liz's personal story.
Yeah, so I'm former legislative director to Congresswoman Gabby Giffords from Arizona, and as many of you know, she was shot at a congressional event in Tucson, Arizona, and one of my colleagues, Gabe Zimmerman, was killed in that event. He was the first congressional staffer killed in the line of duty. So when I hear stories about colleagues, especially in Washington, I know Congresswoman Jayapal has faced some threats as well. It really strikes me as personal because I know what those threats can materialize to be. And I think so many of us are concerned about all of your safety and what is being done to make sure that that's being stepped up for you.
Well, we need to lower the rhetoric to begin
true.
with. And, President Trump really incited horrible rhetoric about people in general, people of color, people with disabilities. He allowed that conversation to go. And I believe it's up to us as leaders to help lower that rhetoric and return respect to languages. Secondly, security is an issue for everybody today. Gun violence is a gun violence issue. And we need to reduce the number of guns and address this. I'm so proud of our state. We've taken some really important steps. We have more work to do. At the federal level, we passed the first gun safety bill ever, beat the NRA. No one thought we could, but Uvalde happened. And it was pretty hard for the senators from Texas to pretend that didn't happen. So we did make some steps, nothing close to what I think we need to do. But for everybody's safety and security, we need to reduce the number of guns. I'm for an assault weapons ban. I'm for better background checks. I'm for getting rid of ghost guns. I just think we have to reduce the number of guns. We need to reduce the rhetoric in our country, and we need to protect each other. And that's what I do. I appreciate somebody's question about me and my staff. I go out and work every day to be a voice for people. I know all of you do the same thing in your community. We all deserve the same protection.
Thank you. I was going to ask about assault weapons, but you nailed it. And we're going to do that in the legislature next session.
Are you really?
We're going to do
great.
it. We're going to pass an assault weapons ban. Yay!
I think that's great, but we need to do it at the federal level.
Sure do.
Because
Sure do.
People do come across the Washington border.
We do. So this is a question about education. And it's personal for so many of us with kids in school. So many of our kids' learning got off track during remote learning in the pandemic. What are plans in Washington, D.C. to get that back on track for our kids?
This is so important. I think we all know the effects on families because of COVID. And kids learn differently. Some kids did well, some families did well, a lot of kids didn't. And the learning loss that we have seen, we have to address. In the American Rescue Plan, I wrote the provisions to provide resources for our schools to deal with learning loss, making sure that they get summer school and tutoring, after school learning, and that the schools have the resources to do that, because I assure you most schools don't have that. So providing the federal support for schools to do that. And I think we have to continue to really work closely with all of our schools and continue to provide that kind of support. Every child deserves to learn. We have to make sure every child catches up. We're doing better, but we need to deal with this. And the other part of this really is mental health. This has been a huge, huge issue for our kids, for our teachers, for everybody. But we have to deal with the issue of mental health for our kids. And right now I am working on legislation with my Republican counterpart to deal with mental health. We hope to have a bill out here shortly. Would love to have it done by the end of the year, to have the federal government really start investing more resources in community-based mental health, particularly for young kids.
That's amazing. Okay, I have a comment. By the way, we love the kids. We're here for it. Make all the noise you want. Mimi has a comment that I'd like to share with you.
This is Mimi?
Mimi, over here. Well, do you want to share it yourself? She says, I just want to thank you for a spot of sanity over the last 6 years. You never give up.
I
Thank
don't
you.
give up. We can't give up. This is our country. This is our country. We have to make it what we want it to be. You know, I will share with you, I never thought I would be in the legislature.
Yeah, so tell us more about
I
that.
never did. But way back, my kids were in a preschool program, and the state legislature defunded it. It was a community college-based parent education program. And the state legislature took the money away for it, and I went, who the heck are they? And I put my 1- and 3-year-old in my car. I drove to Olympia. I started talking to legislators. There wasn't anybody like Liz to talk to at the time. But I was just trying to figure out, what are you doing? And this male state legislator just looked down at me and he said, you can't make a difference. You're just a mom in tennis shoes. Do not give up. I went home. I organized parents all over the state of Washington. We organized writing letters, making phone calls. We inundated the state legislature. They could not have a hearing without a row of us with our kids in front of them demanding that they refund this program. And it took about 3 months, but they put the money back in. And that really inspired me, that you can just go, oh shoot, that happened, or you can go out, work hard, keep your hope up, fight for what you believe in, and make a difference. And I've found that over and over again in my career.
Well, representation matters. I ran for office in 2020 with a 6-week-old baby girl because there was an opening in my community, and there were not a lot of people like us with lived experience with young kids at home. And there's so many challenges for young parents right now, and that's why you inspire me so much.
Well, there you go.
Okay, how many more questions do we have? Yes.
I have a comment. I owe you a really big thank you. We were at your kickoff campaign 30 years ago. My sister's Pearl Noreen.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, she has a brother, believe it or not.
Pearl, Noreen, and I taught preschool together.
Well, I was in Vietnam. I came home. I did an anesthesia residency. I set a dental office up 5 blocks down the street where I worked for 57 years. But I never got my medals. I didn't do anything particularly great, but I was there. So I wrote the Navy, and they said all your records were burned. Well, I was smart enough, I kept my records, or copies. So I sent a copy, and they said, oh, this is what, you should have asked for this 30 years ago. And that kind of ticked me off.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a letter to you or your staff, and my medals arrived 5
Oh.
And, I can't wear them. My grandkids can play with them.
They will have them. I still have my dad's medals from World War II in a drawer. I mean, they mean the world to me. So
it was
I think that's
phenomenal.
great.
You had me in tears. I'm about to do it again.
I am so glad we could help you. Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that.
And thanks for your service.
Oh, thank you. That was.
Thank you. Okay, I've got another question. We'll just keep rolling the questions. How do we overcome the effects of fear-based propaganda and base our policies on facts, people, and that people refuse to believe?
Well, that is a real challenge today. And social media is not easy to deal with. There's no easy answer to this. I think we all have to take a breath and realize what we read or hear about. We have to really research and make sure we know the facts. And we shouldn't pass on things that are not true. It's hard to do with social media today. I think part of it is making sure our kids in school learn to be discerning and learn that, just because you read it on social media doesn't mean it's true. And that's a hard thing for a teacher to teach kids when you're trying to tell them to do research and find facts. But I think we all have to condemn the kind of rhetoric that we hear, and we all have to stand up and make sure we have the facts when we speak.
I'm going to ask one question for myself. What are we going to do to pass paid family medical leave in this country? Because it is a shame how we treat new parents.
Well, let me tell you, when I first went to the Senate, the very first bill I worked on was unpaid family leave. And I worked with Senator Ted Kennedy, and we stood on the floor for weeks trying to get unpaid family leave passed. And Ted Kennedy was awesome. He talked about when his son was in the hospital with cancer and that there were parents there who literally had to be at work and couldn't be with their kids. I actually told a story on the floor of the Senate that was true of a friend of mine before I went into the Senate whose son was 15 years old and was diagnosed with leukemia. And she was literally told by her boss, if you take time off from work, I can't guarantee that you'll be home. Choosing between a dying child and your job. That is awful. So I'll share with you, I told that story on the floor of the Senate, and a male senator came over to me afterwards and he said, we don't tell stories about people on the floor of the Senate. And I said, I came here to tell stories about people on the floor of the Senate. And later, many years later, he came back and he told me you changed how the Senate works. So, we did, but we passed it, and I thought, this was great. We'll pass paid leave soon, because not that many people can take 3 months off.
No.
And not being paid. And I thought it wouldn't be long. And here we are years later and have been unable to get the votes to pass paid family leave. So I'm back on the floor telling stories. I'm telling about people who go to work the day after their child's born because they got to pay their rent. I'm telling stories about people who literally families have fallen apart. So if you have stories, you share them with me, because we are going to get this done. We are one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have paid leave. If we want to show that we respect families and people's decision to have families, then we should have paid family leave.
I agree. We have the paid family medical leave program here in Washington. It's been wildly popular. I mean, projections have just gone out of the roof for it, and we know more needs to be done on this front as well. Well, we're at the end of our time. Senator, thank you so much for spending time with us, and I want to give you opportunity for closing remarks, but it's been an honor, as always,
Thank you, Liz.
to be with you.
Well, I am delighted to be here with Liz. Let's give her a huge round of applause. Favorite legislators, it's great to be here with you today. We share the same passage. Thank you to all of you for being here. I'll just end with this. You know me. You know what I fight for. You know what I believe in. This election is critically important. Who your voice is, who votes for you, who goes to the Senate floor to fight on issues like this or women's choice or a multitude of things, makes a tremendous difference. We are 1 or 2 votes short of passing childcare. Let's make sure we send somebody back to be your voice that's going to be your voice and doesn't fight for you. And that's why I'm asking for your support in this election. So thank you.
Thank you.